Hello everybody and bonjour from Paris. This is another episode of Paris in all its glory. Welcome. As I wait for my live viewers to show up as usual, I guess you can hear me on the replay. And hello on the replay. Thank you for joining me here. It's number 57. Here we're in the Latin Quarter. As the title implies, this one I'm calling is a bit of a theme. It's called Coffee, Colleges, and Code Breaking, and I promise to touch upon all of those topics today during this walk. I can see my live viewers showing up. Fantastic. We're connected officially. Welcome and bonjour, everybody. My name's Corey Frye, a French fry in Paris, and the idea is if you can't bring yourself to Paris, I'm going to bring it to you for free every week. I'm a full-time tour guide, and I love to offer these free little glimpses of the neighborhoods that I love and the things that I hope to help you discover. So, where are we right now? We're actually starting with the coffee part of the title, Coffee, Colleges, and Code Breaking. Let me show you, give you the pan around here. We have a lovely religious building, this courtyard that descends down off of the Rue de Llano, and let me just give you an overview. It's actually been, part of it at least, converted into a lovely cafe. It's called Nuage. Nuage meaning cloud in French. And I love this place. They've got amazing specialty coffee, but it's one of those rather new arrivals in Paris, which is a co-working space. This has been here for a little while. And so a co-working space is where you actually pay by the hour. So you come here with your laptop or with your coworkers, and you do a little bit of work. You use it as your office. Right there is the cafe called Nuage, set in this beautiful old chapel. And for €5 per hour, you basically hang out, you work, you read, you do whatever you like, and as long as you're paying that €5 per hour, you get unlimited coffee, specialty coffees prepared by a barista. You get unlimited Wi-Fi, you get free snacks, and basically you can stay as long as you like and just eat and drink your way into oblivion just for €5 per hour. That was a way to make sure that people weren't coming with their laptop and just buying one €2 espresso and hanging out all day. So again, for those who are just arriving, let me give you one last look. I just love this. In fact, people are coming out, so why don't we go in? That's the name, Nuage. And all you got to do is buzz. All you got to do is buzz, and the gate is open. That just lets them know that you're coming. Hello, everybody, and bonjour. So there's a rather grand staircase, and you come down here. So it's called Nuage. It's one of my favorite coffee shops. You can come here and pay by the hour, unlimited coffee and snacks and Wi-Fi, and a really cozy working space. In fact, let me back up into the corner here. If you want a unique coffee spot, this is your place. Now, I brought some images, some show and tell action today, as I've been want to do recently. So let me see if you can make this out. This is the interiors of one of the upstairs sections. So if you can make that out, do you see that? You're literally in a chapel having your coffee and doing your work, and you're those beautiful Gothic style arches. So that's what Nuage is all about. Again, really like the quality of the coffee. Flowers are lovely today. And that is one reason why I use the word coffee in today's title. One last look here at this lovely courtyard. Gretchen Rivers is asking if they serve wine. No, I don't think they serve wine. This is more, like I said, a co-working sort of productivity space more than anything. So there's a little button here that I'm going to push to get through the gate. And there you go, that's Nuage. Now what I want to do is, if you've been watching recently, I have been switching up lenses occasionally to change the experience from time to time for you all, so I want to do that right now. So just bear with me for a sec. You'll see why in a minute. So we're going to pop the zoom lens on here. If I can manage to do it. There we go, sorry. Okay, here we go. Someone just said, some people work well with a glass of wine. Well, not this guy, I can tell you. Not this guy. So I went with the zoom lens here for this reason. Look at this. Oh my goodness, this street, the Rue des Carmes. We're in the Latin Quarter today. We're in the 5th arrondissement of Paris. Welcome everybody. It's great to have you here. And this view of the Pantheon, it looks like this entire network of streets was just designed to give us the perfect framed view of the Pantheon. We'll talk a little bit about the Pantheon. I want to throw in a fun fact or two for you. Let me just give you an idea of what's going on architecture-wise in the Latin Quarter today. A lot of hotels in this area. We just passed by a little florist. Okay, but let me show you this one as we walk by. And there's a little dead end called the Passage du Club Journaux. It's actually not a dead end. It's an elbow at the end, but it's this cute little alley. So I'll give you an idea of that. At the end there, it bends to the left, so you can actually, it is a passage, you can pass through it. Oh, this view is glorious. Now, DL Shearer says that passage needs a mural. I'll get on it, DL, next time you're here. Here as we make our way up the Rue des Carmes. Look at this beauty. It's a quite unexpected old chapel. It's called the Church of St. Ephrem. It's hiding and it's got its own little courtyard here. Show you. Let's get closer. St. Ephrem, this is a special type of mass that they have in here where they speak a language called Aramaic, and I'm not an expert by any means, but Aramaic apparently is the language that Christ himself would have spoken back in the day with his apostles, his mother tongue, as it were. So I want to tell you about the concerts in a minute, but first, do you notice, maybe you've already seen, sadly there's some damage here. I mean, this was never meant to be looking like that. But we can actually, it's sad that it's no longer there. The French Revolution damaged whatever symbolism was there. But we do know kind of what it was supposed to look like, because I want to show you another image. The architect actually drew inspiration for this church from Rome. You know, the great sculptor and architect Bernini did a church of St. Andrew in Rome. So let me show you that. That is Bernini's St. Andrew in Rome. And do you see it's got the same sort of porch vibe? And if I zoom in as much as possible, see what's meant to be above the porch? Some sort of large emblem with a crown. So knowing that, I think that's what was supposed to go on. So there would have been something fancy there, but the capital's there. So just keep that in mind, that whole vibe, and then let's take another look at Bernini. So we've got a healthy slice of Roman inspiration here. Now, let me back up a little bit. St. Ephrem. So yeah, they give their masses in that Aramaic original language of Christ. They've got concerts here. Let me show you. Thank you. Yeah. So they do these concerts aux chandelles, which means candlelit concerts. And they do them quite often. For example, tonight it looks like they're doing 20th, let's see. They are doing Chopin. And then the next night they're doing Schubert, and etc. So you can come here now. Let me zoom in for those who want to check out. Apparently they say the acoustics are incredible in this church here. So there's the phone number, there's the website, 23 euros. Love it. I think that's the only way you can see the interiors, by the way, is to go to one of those concerts and enjoy the acoustics of St. Ephrem. All right, let's get closer to the Pantheon. Ellen Hortop says, love the Bernini postcard. Thanks, I made that myself. There's all sorts of activity behind the scenes for these live episodes. So the Pantheon, we've been staring at it long enough. I thought to myself, we'd be looking at it today during this episode, so why not? What's something that you all might not necessarily know about the Pantheon? Let's start with this. How about the fact that we know what it takes to get in the Pantheon? You need to have lived a life of, success or accomplishment, perhaps a bit of a humanitarian effort, whatnot. You have to be a learned person. But what does it take to get kicked out of the Pantheon? We know what it takes to get in. What does it take to get kicked out? Because it's happened 4 times, believe it or not. So as we're looking at it here, let's start with this guy. His name was Mirabeau. Come on, Mirabeau, get in focus there. Come on, camera, you can do it. Oh. Anyway, there we go. There's Mirabeau. He was a hero of the French Revolution. Long story short, he was the very first guy, Mirabeau, to be placed in the Pantheon when the revolutionaries turned the Catholic Church, the Christian Church, into a mausoleum. So Mirabeau, he's put in there. And then the next year they realized that they secretly discovered letters that Mirabeau had written to the king, the enemy of the revolution. And so they found out that Mirabeau was actually buddy-buddy with the king and giving him advice during that period. And so that was a no-no. So they actually yanked Mirabeau out of the Pantheon eventually. So he was in there, and then a few years later, he's out because they found he's not quite the hero of the revolution that we thought. He was communicating with Louis XVI. Also, this guy, remember from the last episode in the Palais Royal? A little bit dark there. This guy's Marat. He was another great hero of the French Revolution, murdered in his bathtub by Charlotte Corday. We talked about that in a previous episode. You can check that out. Roses and Revolution at the Palais Royal is the episode. So he, Marat, replaced Mirabeau's body here when they removed him. But then Marat, less than 4 months later, after they put Marat where Mirabeau was, they removed Marat. Why? Because there was a political change, right? And different people were in power, and they decided that this hero of the revolution, this martyr of the revolution, no longer deserved to be in the Pantheon. So he was the second guy kicked out. And then lastly, there's another name from the previous episode. Do you remember Mr. Lepeletier? He was a nobleman in a cafe at the Palais Royal. A guy went up to him and said, "Are you the nobleman who voted for the death of the king?" And he said, "Yes, indeed, that's me." And the assassin pulls out a blade and stabs Lepeletier, kills him right there in the cafe of the Palais Royal. So Lepeletier, because he was a noble, he wasn't supposed to vote for the death of the king, but he did. He sided with the revolutionaries. And so a king's supporter came to take him out. And why was he removed? Well, just because the family wanted Lepeletier to be buried in a family burial plot. So there was no controversy there, but I just thought it was interesting that 3 out of the 4 people who have been removed from the Pantheon was that Lepeletier guy that we talked about at Palais Royal. Let's talk about this place because, again, we're talking coffee, colleges, and code breaking. I love Nuage, which we started with, great coffee there. This is a little bit different vibe, it's called Josie. This amazing iced lattes here. This is when I Instagrammed the avocado toast recently, and I kind of teased it and said I'm going to show you where that was. The best avocado toast I've ever had. So if you really want to go full-on hipster in Paris, check that out here. And also they do this very odd thing, which I've never seen a cafe do this before. Let me show you this. Tell me this isn't rare. A happy hour. Every morning, if you get a to-go coffee, they will give you a free croissant or pain au chocolat for free. All you got to do is take your coffee to go rather than sit down. And then every afternoon, it's a free pâtisserie. You get a free snack or a free croissant just for taking a cup of coffee to go. And it's good coffee too. So they're doing that because they actually don't want to fill up the tables with people just ordering coffee. They'd rather have people eating meals, right? It's better for business. And they're also appealing to the students around here. There are a lot of universities. So there you go. Why is it called Josie? Phyllis Cartwright saying, I wish I knew about this place last week. Why is it called Josie? I actually asked the owner. His name's Adrien or Adrien. He's a Parisian guy, but he spent a lot of time in Johannesburg, South Africa. And apparently a very affectionate name for Johannesburg is Josie. So that's where that comes from. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't. Let's pop back into the street. Because we've got some good elevation here in the Latin Quarter. Can you make that out? That is Our Lady, Notre Dame, the bell towers there. And what we're meant to see, let me get my digit in the frame, what we're meant to see right there, sorry, is the roof. So Pantheon on one end, slightly beat up Notre Dame on the other. That's part of Notre Dame as well, covered up in scaffolding. And then, this is called the Rue De Llano. I've always loved this street. I wanted to share this with you today. 1185, they created this street. Speaking of Notre Dame, it was barely even being erected from the ground when this street was created. And it's got that great medieval vibe. As I've said in the past, I love any street that I can't see the end of, and that's the case here. Sorry if I haven't been reading comments, folks. I know you're there. I know you're all chatty. Probably asking me questions and such, but I was a little bit in the zone there with the whole Pantheon deal. We've got a little dead end called the Rue des Cosses here. I don't know why it's called a rue, because technically it should be an impasse, right? Because it's a dead end. A street, I think technically, legally has to be like a throughway that you can pass through, but there's an invader here. Let me show you this. Rue des Cosses. Look at that. And I think it's time to switch back to a wide angle. So bear with me while I do that. Go. So how many of you know about the restaurant on the corner here called Le Coupe-Chou? Very interesting address. The Coupe-Chou, actually, the name, it refers to a type of razor. You know those old style sort of switchblade type razors that the barbers would give you a shave with? It's called the Coupe-Chou, which means a cabbage cutter. And so it's got a great old vibe. All the interiors are actually, well, the door's actually open, so let me just sneak a little bit. Pardon. J'entre pas, c'est juste pour regarder. Excusez-moi. Sorry, I want to give us one more peek in there when I can. Bonjour. Bonjour. Excusez-moi. Voilà. Je vous embête pas plus. Voilà. So it's a Louis XIII Renaissance era style inside. Let me pan up here. Again, it's called Le Coupe-Chou. Beautiful fireplace and woodwork and a Louis XIII staircase. I don't know if you can make that out, but it says restaurant up there. It's interesting, the restaurant sign is angled down toward us, in fact, so we could read it. And then this here, I've been wondering what this is, and it's anyone's guess, but my best guess is that it could be to tie your horses up back in the day. If anyone else has any other ideas, perhaps a torture device, or to keep your toddlers tied up while you're trying to enjoy a romantic dinner with your wife. So, interesting leftover. Let me show you the corner. Now this place, Le Coupe-Chou, is it good or not? Well, if you read the reviews online, you'll see the two extremes. Some people say the best meal I've ever had, I go back every time I'm in town. Other people say terrible service, it was really pretty mediocre. Me personally, I had a beef bourguignon there and it was very good, and on my list is actually the duck confit and also their crème brûlée. Those are the two things that I want to try at the Coupe-Chou. And I'm wondering if we're gonna actually be a little bit naughty and we're just gonna take a peek inside. Bonjour. finir deux secondes d'ici? Ne gêne pas.
La mise en place n'est pas faite, je suis désolé.
Ah d'accord, excusez-moi. Bah, bonne journée en tout cas.
Ce soir, si vous voulez, à 19h, si vous voulez.
C'est gentil. Ok, merci. Au revoir, bonne journée. Okay, so we got rejected, but hopefully you saw a little bit in the process. I want to tell you a story about this. It's funny. In 1965, the owners, there were three actors that opened this place up. 1965, they get a phone call, and someone says, yeah, I'd like to reserve a table for the Beatles. And it was right at the heart of Beatlemania in 1965, right? People going crazy. And they're like, all right, well, at 11 p.m., I guess the Beatles are showing up. So they prep, and they're trying to, make it special and get ready for the band. And they're waiting, and oddly enough, all of a sudden they hear the rear, 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 rear. It's like a paddy wagon, a police van, and it shows up with its sirens on. And from the police van pop out Ringo and Paul and George. They all pop out. The Beatles had to take a police escort from the theater. It was the Olympia Theater in 1965, and classic Beatles style. They couldn't get out of the theater, the venue, except for with the help of the police. So that's a coup chou. Hey, Hassan Manning, how's it going, man? Says it looks like the Flatiron Building in New York. Yeah, Hassan, if I was doing the same thing in New York, right, doing these weekly episodes, I would have done the Flatiron Building by now, because that area is fantastic. Let me pan around and show you just the vibe of the architecture of the street that we came from. I like it. I'm down. This was a place where Brigitte Bardot would come to this restaurant. The King of Sweden and the Princess of Denmark and on, and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, etc. Apparently the rest of that Beatles story is they wanted milk with their dinner, and the owners are like, sorry? And they're like, yeah, we'd like milk with our dinner, and that's not a French thing at all. So they had to run around at like midnight through this neighborhood trying to find milk for the Beatles, and then they drank it all, and they had to go running out for more milk for the Beatles. So that's kind of a funny thought. Here we get into the category of hidden green spaces, unexpected green spaces. We're approaching the Rue des Écoles, or the street of the schools. We're getting close to those colleges that I referenced in the title of this, but isn't this... Hello, meditation. Let me just shut up for a second. This is a poet in the center, the statue, the bust. His name was Ronsard. He's from the 16th century. Or Ronsard, sorry. I gotta be careful with my pronunciation. I believe it's R-O, so Ronsard. And there is just some loveliness going on right here. I mean, unexpected loveliness. Let me see if I can up a little bit. Right off of this very busy boulevard of the Rue des Écoles. And let me get you closer to it. So Ronsard was Renaissance era poet, celebrity, beloved by the royal courts of Great Britain and France. He was in tight with Mary, Queen of Scots, in tight with Queen Elizabeth I. So there's Ronsard. I'll get him in frame there. Hello, sir. Now he wrote apparently a lot of beautiful poetry, 16th century, and some of them, or one of the poems, was all about roses. And so there's a species of rose named after Mr. Ronsard. And I think we can assume, that these roses are the species named after the poet. Three benches. There are actually more green spaces than you might expect in this city. Let's do a flyby, right? Okay. There's something I absolutely want you to eat next time you're here. And it's something that I want you to eat. You can sit in that park after you purchase this. Do you see across the street? This place is Christian Constant. He is famous for a few restaurants, really very, very good restaurants. In the 7th arrondissement, Rue Saint-Dominique, Les Cocottes is one of them, Café Constant is one of them. And so he has this, it's the only one, it's his boutique that is, well, let me cross, there's not much traffic. They do pastries and ice cream here, and there's something that I tried the other day that rocked my world. It's an ice cream eclair. Let me try to show you. Bonjour. Can you see that right there? That is like a sweet biscuit with vanilla ice cream, raspberry sorbet, and caramelized almonds. C'est ça, des amandes? Les noix?
Noisettes.
Sorry, caramelized hazelnut, excuse me. And it's dynamite. I had one. J'ai essayé ça il y a quelques jours. Oh là là là.
C'est mon idée en plus.
C'est vrai?
Oui, je suis contente quand ça marche.
Est-ce que je pourrais vous filmer 2 secondes?
Oui.
Okay. She said she invented it.
Bonjour.
It's her invention. Bonjour. C'est les Américains qui regardent, qui adorent Paris. Et donc, je recommande votre invention là.
La tarte.
C'est votre idée.
Je me suis dit que ce serait facile à manger dans la rue et comme ça les gens peuvent le manger en marchant.
Ah, j'ai adoré, franchement, et je reviens pour encore un autre. Merci. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
So yeah, well, there you go. That's the girl who created it. And I want you to get that. Ice cream eclair is at least what I'm calling it. I should have asked her what she calls it. And I'm in the middle of the street. Back to the green space. Look at this. Let's go nice and slow. There's no reason to be in a hurry in Paris. Hey, Ellen Frye, my mom's in the house. Hi, Mom. We're approaching the Collège de France, the College of France. Hence the title. We're going to talk about a couple of universities around here. Look at this nice little view. You can see that this square, this section of the park, is named after an Egyptologist. And we're going to talk about a very famous one later on. Remember, part of the title also is Codebreaking. This episode's called Coffee, Colleges, and Codebreaking. And so Egyptology is going to come into play, but we're not there yet. This is the Collège de France. It used to be the Collège Royal, the Royal College. But, you know, the French Revolution was doing away with all of that kind of stuff, the word royal and such. So the revolutionaries renamed it Collège de France. Interestingly, it was started by Francis I, and one of the Renaissance kings of Paris, or France rather. And what was interesting is it was still today. There's no enrollment here at the Collège de France. There's no diploma offered. You don't pay for the classes. Everybody is accepted, as far as I can tell. Everything that I've read about this school is that you can literally, if you want to take classes there, you just show up. You sign up, but there's no proper enrollment. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to pay anything. So I love that because it's education for the sake of education, right? You got to admire that. So that's the Collège de France. First stone of this building laid by Louis XIII when he was 9 years old. 9-year-old king of France laying the first stone of a higher education school. That's how they did it back in the day. I've got another image that I want to show you. This guy right here was one of the famous professors. You know, they've got so many good professors here at this Collège de France. 10 of them have won Nobel Prizes. 10 of these professors here. So you're getting a free education and a damn good one too. This guy was a professor of medicine. They call him the father of modern physiology. And his name was Bernard, Claude Bernard. But you can see that's a stone statue here, clearly, right? It used to be bronze. And they had to put this one after the war because this happened. The Nazis and the collaborative Vichy French government decided they were going to destroy several thousands, really, bronze statues all throughout Paris and other major cities. So can you make that out? This is not the exact statue that we're looking at, but this is a gentleman hired to destroy and melt down many of the bronze statues that didn't agree with the ideology and the politics of the occupying Germans. So 1940s, Nazi occupation, so many beautiful statues of animals and politicians and historical figures all throughout Paris were destroyed, and they had to make copies. So It's very sad. You know, you talk about Paris being spared in many ways as far as the damage, because the Nazis in the end didn't bomb it that much. Hitler ordered for Paris to be destroyed, and that never happened, thank goodness. But boy, there was some damage left behind, because a statue like this was meant to be the original 19th century bronze version of Mr. Bernard. And instead now, I mean, this is fine, I'm not complaining, but it's too bad that the original bronze version isn't there, right? I want to give a shout out to one of my fellow Paris nerds. Her name's Messy Nessie Chic. If you haven't heard of Messy Nessie yet, you want to check her out. She's an amazing blogger and author. And she did a beautiful article about those statues and when they were melted down. So, Collège de France, we're going to come back to that in a minute, but I just want to give you these visuals. Apparently, the French Vichy government, again collaborating with the Nazis, told the French, oh, this is going to be used to help your own economy and help your own government and whatnot. And so they were also giving up their own metal instruments and objects. But in the long run, they were mostly just melted down for German warfare, German armaments. That is Dante of Inferno fame. Look at these visuals. Wow, come on. Even these bustling boulevards of the Latin Quarter here in the 5th arrondissement, even despite all the activity and the commotion, you can still find these views. Hello, Dante. Yeah, so shout out to Messy Nessie. She did a nice article about that whole statue destroying idea. I believe that the article, if you want to search for it, it's called where the statues of Paris went to die, I believe. I wanted to run across, but there's a bus. So that's one college, the Collège de France. This is a university, which we'd call a college in America, at least. The Sorbonne, you've heard of the Sorbonne University. Founded by a royal confessor to St. Louis, Louis the Ninth. You've heard of St. Louis, he built Sainte-Chapelle, etc. And his royal confessor was this gentleman, whose name was Robert, and he came from a city just outside of Reims to the northeast of Paris. And the city was called Sorbonne, so he was called Robert de Sorbon, royal confessor to the king, and then started the primitive version of what would be this, the Sorbonne University. It was originally, the idea was to give poor students a good education without having to pay. In fact, nowadays that tradition more or less continues because you don't really pay much of anything to go to the Sorbonne, all of these state-run universities. So that's a nice bit of quality of life angle for the French. And he turned it into, essentially it would become the hub of learning in all of Europe. If you wanted an education, you came to Paris. It became so prestigious. So Madame Curie, Marie Curie, was the first female professor there, who's buried in the Pantheon, by the way. She never got kicked out of the Pantheon like those other gentlemen we talked about. And then let me, from here, pop on the zoom because I want to get a little bit closer. Hold on. Before we admire the Pantheon, by the way, I just got to, the Sorbonne, I got to turn around here and show you these invaders. Those are fun. I guess they're supposed to be stamps, maybe? So if you're into the invader street artist mosaic dude, there you go. Let's get back to the Sorbonne, and then we're going to finish up back at the Collège de France. I have no idea how I'm doing on time here. Not too bad, a little long. You're looking here at the Sorbonne University, the observatory. This is still actually the oldest let me see if I can get this right. It's the oldest astronomical observation space that's still in service today. And it was built along the meridian. Nowadays, the prime meridian runs through Greenwich, and it's how we determine the time zones. But Paris had its own meridian back in the day. There were competing meridians between Greenwich and Paris. And so this one was built to run more or less right along the Parisian meridian. And it would have been, like an invisible line running north and south through the city. And I guess it made sense for astronomical such observations, right? That's what they do. Still today, the oldest one is still in service, and so that's the Sorbonne. It's a nice degree if you can get it. And let me finish up over here. This is me, by the way. Hi. I want to let you know that if you didn't know already, I do this pretty much every week for free. And if you want to help support this project and help give me the time and the equipment and whatnot to keep sharing Paris with you, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. And there's a link in the description of this replay, and you can actually get a bunch of cool rewards. And I won't go into all of them, but you can check that out on my Patreon page. And for a small pledge each month, you can actually help me continue this project, help it survive and thrive, and get a lot of cool rewards and extra Paris content in return, including a Café Chat today, privately, for my Patreon supporters, with a couple of people who are on their way to the Versailles masked ball. The grand masked ball of Versailles is happening tonight, and I'm going to do a private Café Chat with them in their full costumes. Sorry, I'm a hand talker. Just knocked my mic off. So yeah, in their full costumes, and they are going to talk about what it's like to set up for the Versailles grand ball and how you get there and tickets and how you dress yourself up. So that should be fun. All right, let's finish here. We are looking at the courtyard of that Collège de France. And let me zoom up just a little bit here. I want to give you the best view of this gentleman here. There we go. So who is this guy? His name is Champollion. He was a professor here. Remember I mentioned that the roster of professors here is just dynamite. At least 10 of them have gone to win Nobel Prizes. So let me tell you what happened with this guy. I love this story. And then I'll tell you why this statue is actually controversial and some people want it torn down. Napoleon, when he's doing his thing just before he's emperor in the 1790s, Napoleon is making a beeline for Egypt. He wants to conquer Egypt, make it part of the French Empire. He wants to, let's be honest, pilfer and pillage and get all the good stuff and send those objects back to France. And so the British Royal Navy is tracking him down and trying to stop Napoleon, and he evades them, he eludes them, and parks into a bay in Egypt and brings in over 150 of his best guys to come in, learned men to come in and figure out what is of value, what is culturally significant here, what can we study, what can we learn about Egypt, and also what can we perhaps send back to Paris, right? So this Champollion guy became part of that team because Napoleon and his crew find the Rosetta Stone. If you've heard of the Rosetta Stone, maybe you only know it as a software for learning a language, maybe for learning French. But they found this chunk of stone, and I know that the lighting isn't superb, but what you're looking at here is from 200 BC. It's a huge slab of stone with all these little markings. It was all this text. Some of the text was completely unknown, had never been found before. So the British finally catch up with Napoleon in Egypt, and they're going to steal all of his goodies that he was taking from that area. And before, however, they took the Rosetta Stone from Napoleon and his crew, they made a copy. So the French have a copy of the stone, the Brits have the actual stone, and now the race is on, because whichever empire can figure out the translation of this Rosetta Stone is not only going to get brownie points and prestige points, but they might actually be able to tap in to Egyptian hieroglyphics like never before. And I hope that's not too dark for you. You get an idea. You can obviously Google it. So the Rosetta Stone in Britain and the copy in France, and everyone's scrambling to figure it out. Well, in Britain, they had this aristocratic, wealthy guy who was called Young. His name was Young, and he was using a traditional approach, a member of high society and, a upper crust of British society. And then the scrappy guy in France called Champollion, he was a brilliant linguist. He was a genius. By the age of 13, he was fluent in 6 different ancient languages by 13 years old. And so he takes a different approach, Champollion. And so it's kind of this like whiz kid, rustic country boy Champollion versus the rock star aristocrat in Britain, Young. And, well, Champollion, spoiler alert, deciphers it. He deciphers the unknown Egyptian hieroglyphic text on the Rosetta Stone. It took 24 years, and in 1822, he produced his findings. And so the French won, thanks to Champollion. Later on, 100 years later, 1922, 100 years after the Rosetta Stone was cracked by Champollion, he cracked the code, hence the title of my episode today. 100 years later, they discover King Tut's tomb. And archaeologists would never have known that it was King Tut, and they wouldn't have known how to decipher the texts on King Tut's tomb had it not been for this gentleman, Champollion, professor of the Collège de France. Now, that's the story, and that's the code-breaking aspect of our episode today, and I hope you find that interesting. Definitely look into it more, because it's one of those great instances where true life and true history play out in a more dramatic way than sometimes a novel ever could. The race to decipher the Rosetta Stone, there you go. Now, why is this controversial? Well, some Egyptians saw this, and they said, wait a minute, he's actually stepping on a head of a pharaoh, like a ruin. And they're like, well, that's disrespectful. Like, why is he standing on top of, like, he's dominating Egyptian culture? And so actually Cairo and the Egyptian government occasionally asks for this to be taken down, and I don't think it's going to happen. At least some people in Egypt want to remove this statue. So there you go. Also, I got to mention, for my Patreon folks, and the reason that you want to become a member and get perks and rewards, I wasn't allowed to, but I made my way in there, and there is a beautiful painted ceiling, this beautiful passage with these arcades, and just gorgeous. And I took about 200 photos, and then they said, you're not allowed to take photos in here. But I had my 200 pics, and I walked out with them, and I'm going to share those privately with my Patreon folks. So stay tuned for that. If you're a supporter, you're going to see the off-limits interiors of part of that courtyard of the Collège de France. All right. So that's it, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm going to see you for the next episode. Again, if you can't bring yourself to Paris, I'm going to bring Paris to you. Right now, if you're already a Patreon subscriber and supporter, we are going to switch to the tour extension. That's another reward. You're going to get an extended look at this neighborhood. I'm going to show you a hidden medieval chapel that a lot of people don't know about, very close by, tucked away in its own little spot. The only medieval chapel in this area, actually. And I'm going to show you the state of Notre Dame. We're going to pass by there and see what's going on with the repairs. We're going to have that Café Chat with the folks that are on their way to Versailles in full Marie Antoinette costumes. We're going to talk about the process of how do you get to the grand masked ball of Versailles and how do you get dressed for it. And along the way, we're just going to enjoy more loveliness and doorways and windows and architecture and medieval streets. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate you joining me, and I think that's all I want to say. That's it for episode 57. I'll see you for number 58. No idea where we'll be, no idea what the theme will be, but there you go. That was coffee, colleges, and code breaking. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.